Hello and welcome to this edition of North County Roundtable. I'm your host, Kent Davey. Today we are joined by the incoming Oceanside Fire Chief, David Parsons, who is stepping in to fill outgoing and retiring Chief Rick Robinson. Please stay with us for this edition of North County Roundtable. On July 30th, Dave Parson will become the new Oceanside Fire Chief. Welcome to Journalist Roundtable, Dave.
Thank you for having me.
For our viewers out there, tell us who you are and a little bit about your career.
Yes, thanks for the question. I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. Went to the University of Arizona, got a bachelor's degree in health sciences. And as a young man after college, trying to find my way a little bit into a career, became friends with firefighters who, if you speak to any firefighter, you'll see the passion behind their eyes and their speech and their manner and how much they really live and believe that public service ethos. And that spoke to me. So I joined a fire department in the rural area outside of Tucson and worked at a couple of different fire departments. Got my paramedic license in that time. Worked for a couple of fire departments. Also met my future wife at the time, who was from San Diego area, from San Diego County, East County. In that time, we also had a child. And as I was looking for my destination career and choice to destination department to work for, we ended up coming back to family. We'd moved away from family, came back to San Diego County, where my wife's family was from. And we wanted to raise our children around family, and that was really important to me and her. And I worked for CAL FIRE for approximately 9 months. But as a paramedic and as a firefighter, I always wanted to work for my destination department. For my personal desire and goals were a busy urban city fire department. That's who I wanted to work for. And the opportunity here in Oceanside came up relatively quickly. After 9 months in CAL FIRE, I was able to get hired on in the city of Oceanside in 2001 as a firefighter paramedic.
Okay.
I was a little older, I think, than some of the other people in my fire academy. Only a little bit, but I had a little bit of life experience, had worked as a paramedic firefighter for a number of years before I came here. I brought my education and background to the table, and my work ethic was, allowed me to promote relatively quickly. I made fire captain in 2006, served some time in the Fire Prevention Bureau, served time on the ladder truck company. It's a specialty operation in the fire department. Of course, was a fire captain on an engine for all that period of time until 2018, when I promoted up to Fire Battalion Chief. And in that role, I was given the title of Fire Marshal here in the city of Oceanside. Something I'd had uniquely a little bit in my background that others did not. And the fire chief asked me to take on a special role because we were transforming how we do business from the traditional old model of fire prevention to what we now call community risk reduction. And that just broadens. The analogy for the fire service is we used to just fight fires up until the 70s and early 80s, and then we took on paramedic care, and we took on hazardous materials responses, and more. Became an all-risk response agency. Well, the analogy is that fire prevention is trying to move into an all-risk strategy of prevention, whether it's identifying that a neighborhood has a slip, trip, and fall problem. Well, that's not fire prevention, but because of the data that we're able to collect now and being data-driven and efficient with how we provide services for the money, I was tasked with beginning the transformation of how we do business. And it's a very large task. It's not complete, but I think I've set us on that path, and the chief asked me to set us on that path, and we're moving forward as we've changed that aspect of the fire department. Some of the other things that I've done that got me to this point are I'm on a federal incident management team. That's a team of very high-level, well-trained people from across the Forest Service, local government, state employees, other federal agencies as well, Bureau of Land Management, all with fire expertise or financial expertise and planning expertise. And we get called to the largest wildfires mostly across the state, but I was able to be deployed to Georgia once to help them with fires that they were experiencing in an unusual manner a couple of years back. And in that role, as in the planning section, helping design the plan for each subsequent operational period when we're working on the fire, it's usually about 12 hours to 24 hours. We serve the public, we serve the firefighters who are out on the line, making sure they're fed, that they have a place to sleep, that they can do the boots on the ground job on a daily basis. And that's probably one of the most impactful things I've done in my career that helped me become prepared for the fire chief's position here, and really brings a lot of skills, not just to the fire department, to me personally, but I brought those skills back to the city and helping run the emergency management program that the city has. Taking a step back to my education, I have a master's degree in emergency and disaster management. Okay. And that's how we take care of our community when very large scale incidents occur. Because it's not just about the fire department at that point being able to respond. We're going to be overwhelmed, but it's how do we help the citizens help themselves? How do we, how can law enforcement get to where they need to be in directing traffic, for example? So the emergency management program is all departments across the city working to protect the community and make it resilient. So I bring, that's some of my history and my education and some of my experience that I was able to bring to this position. And
For our viewers, explain what a fire marshal does.
Sure. The basic law in the fire code is that the fire chief is the fire marshal of a department unless designated. In an organization, as you grow in an organization, that becomes too large of a task for a fire chief. There's too much to do managing the entire organization. So normally that gets delegated down. In an organization our size, it's delegated down to me currently, before I promote, as the division chief of community risk reduction. The fire marshal primarily is tasked with enforcing fire code laws, both in the construction process, making sure that exiting is correct, smoke detectors are correct, sprinkler systems, alarm systems, everything related to emergencies, not just fires, on buildings that the general public has to go into.
That fire code, is that state law or is that municipal ordinance?
It's both.
Okay.
It starts with state law and the California State Fire Code. We adopt it every 3 years into the local municipal code with some changes that are appropriate for our local conditions. The state fire code is appropriate across the board. However, every city, every community, county, and unincorporated area has unique needs. You know, an urban area is different than a wildland area, and so we incorporate, and different areas of the county incorporate specific local amendments to address local hazards. And so we do have a few local changes that we adopt in that's just additions to, or changes, minor changes to the fire code.
Could you kind of give us an outline of what your department looks like structurally? Because you've got all the way from disaster preparedness to EMS to lifeguards and the fire marshal and your risk reduction. And generally, how big is each of the segments?
Yeah, absolutely. The number one driver of our budget is personnel. That probably holds true, I know that holds true for the police as well. Personnel and people are the most valuable resource and also the most expensive resource we have, because that's how we get our job done. On the fire suppression side, meaning firefighters, there's approximately 112 firefighters, 110 firefighters. But another aspect of our fire operations division is our EMS providers that are non-fire suppression. So those are EMTs, and emergency medical technicians provide basic life support. Firefighters currently are all paramedics. That's a level above the EMT, almost to level, and quite equivalent to the level of a nurse, but a specialty nurse doing emergency care, point of care, pre-hospital emergency care. So you're looking at approximately a little over 150 people on the fire operations side of things.
They're organized at the lowest or the closest to the ground unit would be the company?
Yeah, the company level, which is managed by a fire captain, is 3 personnel. Another company would be an ambulance. That would be considered a company as well.
Oh, okay.
However, the fire captain, who is the manager for a fire station, manages whoever is assigned to that fire station for the day. So a typical example is you have 2 personnel on an ambulance, 3 personnel on a fire engine. The captain's one of those on the fire engine, and that's the manager for that fire station for that day.
Okay.
We do have other ambulances. The BLS or the EMT ambulances are doubled up in some of the locations or in place of a paramedic ambulance in some locations. So we have a little bit of a flexibility in there in how we provide service, which is an important thing for us moving forward and being efficient with taxpayer dollars and responding the right resource to the right need versus where we're transitioning out of in the past of sending the highest level of care we can to every call, which used to be appropriate until our call volume started to grow and started to overwhelm our ability to provide those services.
Okay. And above the captain and the companies that he or she supervises would be a battalion commander?
That's correct. We call it a battalion chief.
Okay.
So the battalion chief, of which we only have one on duty during the day currently, is basically the entire city's day-to-day operational chief officer, taking care of. Really, it's a lot of responsibility, especially under 8 fire stations right now.
8 stations, but not the lifeguards.
Not the lifeguards. Correct. The lifeguards are an operational in their service provision, but they're not part of fire operations.
Right.
They have their very own division. We all have the same goals and end result, but they have a different service to provide, specialty service. So yeah, a different manager. And the analogy to the battalion chief would be the captain. The lifeguard captain is their top level person. Yeah, the battalion chief right now currently manages 8 fire stations. And if you look at our standards, the way the fire service tries to manage, we look for around 1 to 5 management to subordinate span of control. Right now we're at 1 to 8. And within those 8 fire stations are multiple companies, as we just spoke about. So yeah, we're finding, and I'm not saying that Oceanside is necessarily different than other places. The fire service is experiencing a lot of change and in the times that we're in right now for a lot of reasons. The span of control is quite large for that battalion chief.
Do you have a hypothesis as why the number of applicants for fire service has fallen in recent years?
Right now, some of this is speculation. Some of this is just kind of seeing how society has changed. I believe strongly that the pandemic has had an effect on bringing people into the fire service. Public safety in general, I think, has suffered from that. Working from home became desirable for a lot of folks. Students studying from home. Public safety is a person-to-person activity. We are face-to-face with people. So that's one thing. There are at least during the pandemic, and this might be changing as we speak, job opportunities are very wide open right now. And I believe the latest statistics are that there's 2 jobs for every person in this country looking. So, when you can potentially make more money and not be necessarily physically affected like we are sometimes in public safety, you may choose that as an easier place to go.
If I was 50 years younger and had that call to be a firefighter, what would it take to get me onto your department?
If I were to speak about Oceanside specifically, there are 2 paths. There's a number of paths, but our current EMT program, the Basic Life Support Program, is considered an apprenticeship type program.
Okay.
It's relatively easy for a young person to get an EMT license, approximately a 3-month course, 4-month course. And you can come and get a job on an ambulance, not just in Oceanside, but in some of our partner agencies like Carlsbad. And you begin, what's nice about that is you're working and you're able to start getting the other necessary credentials, which in Oceanside means you need to have a fire academy and you need to have a paramedic license.
Okay.
Often people that we do get that apply, applicants, if they haven't come through our EMT program, they've already obtained those academies or skills through other colleges or other means. There's a lot of ways to do it in the state of California. And, but the career path really starts at the firefighter paramedic level.
The Fire Academy is how long a program typically?
Fire Academy, approximately 6 months. Palomar College is the closest, what we would say, full-time or credentialed academy. We still have to put on our own fire academy within the department because may not be well understood. Every fire department's a little different based on the fire engines we buy and the type of service we provide, how we run paramedic calls versus basic life support calls, and how we run fires. While we're getting better at being more cohesive, we're unique, and so we have to run our own academy and to get them on our local standards and how we provide service.
Gotcha.
So it's an additional step.
Once I have credentials, then what happens?
If you're a firefighter paramedic with the credentials and you apply for the City of Oceanside, we go through that, again, a slightly abbreviated version of the academy here for the City of Oceanside, teaching our specific ways of doing the business. And then you're on probation for a year. In that probationary period, you're at will, and you're being vetted and evaluated by the full-time personnel in the fire department. It's an important process because some people find out, even then, that maybe this career wasn't right for them.
Are there both physical as well as knowledge-based testing that goes along through that process that you guys at the department do?
Yes, absolutely. And that's the one, I think it's actually a strong, something that I really love about the fire service. 30, 40 years ago, we might have been considered a trade. And a trade in that we didn't need particular extra college level courses, for example, to get in. But now, Palomar College, you're getting college units to get that paramedic license. You're getting college units to get your fire academy. And many people go on to get their degrees or get degrees first and then come into the fire service. So during the probationary period, you are basically tested, whether it's physically or pen and paper or computer, on a daily basis. And you're expected to be constantly on your best behavior, best performance. You're auditioning for a 30-year career, and you're auditioning for a family because we live with each other on a 24-hour basis. We become more than just coworkers. We become friends, confidants. We take care of each other off duty. So you can imagine that people are somewhat protective of who we're going to let in, and I shouldn't say let in, but who's going to join this special brotherhood and sisterhood. And we care a lot about the badge that we wear and the patches that we wear. We're very proud about that. We want to provide great service, and we want anybody that wears this equipment and these uniforms to represent each other to the best of our ability to the community we serve.
City of Oceanside has 8 stations. One of those stations is being rebuilt, as I understand. That would be Station 1. Tell us about that.
Correct. So current Station 1 built, well, it was a former jail up until the 1920s. And when I worked at Station 1, I slept in an old jail cell, and there were still bars up on the top. It kind of just fun fact and interesting, you know. But the building's very old, obviously. Our fire engines, to back in, clear that door by about 3 inches.
And it's over in the City Hall complex.
Yeah, it's next to City Hall.
Yeah.
It's a standalone building. Again, used to be the jail. And wonderful building. There's a fire pole there. It's a lot of history. We love working out of it, or at least I loved working out. I think most people do. It's a busy place. But truly, it doesn't meet the needs of the community. It doesn't meet the human needs of the firefighters anymore. And so Fire Station 1 is going to be, there's a new Fire Station 1 coming in that's going to be much more, it's going to be expanded and be able to house more people and be modern and safe.
And where will it be?
It is on Civic Center Drive, really just approximately 2 blocks away, very small blocks. So it's right next to City Hall.
Then there's work being done to replace or to deal with Station 8. Tell
Correct.
us about that.
Fire Station 8 right now is in an industrial building that we rent, basically lease from a management company. And it's doing the job. We're able to provide service out of it, but it's not a fire station. It does not have everything we need, including redundancies of power, electricity, and things like that are expected of a key resource and a critical facility. So we are currently in the design process for a new Fire Station 8. We were provided funds through the City Council, and so we're moving forward on that. Now, we don't have construction funds yet. That's going to be determined at some point in the near future or medium-term future by the City Council. But as you know, the fire department's part of a pie when it comes to the budget. And that pie has to be split up amongst the police department, fire department, public works, and everybody else that all have needs. And we are very close partners with our police department. Chief Armijo is a great public safety partner. We have probably the best, as far as I'm aware, police and fire relationship in public safety. And I've worked for a number of organizations where sometimes those relationships aren't in alignment. And we want to see them be successful. They're working out of a building that was never designed to house the police headquarters. And so they have needs. So what that leads us to is we have to figure out, and that's going to be policymakers, City Council and City Manager, determine what's going to come first, what's going to, potentially we can do it all at the same time with other funding mechanisms like Measure X and TOT taxes, community facilities districts that are being spoken about. So I'm optimistic that through a collaborative approach, we'll both be able to have our needs met.
Over the course of time, and certainly over the course of your career, technology has changed quite a bit for firefighting and the technology you have available. Can you tell us something about that technological change? For instance, use of drones.
Yes. To answer specifically your question on drones, the fire department, through one of our individuals who took it on as a project, we have our own drone program. And that drone program includes the Lifeguards. Some of the things that they're able to do with the drone program that was never done, no one knew the opportunity was there, or these are opportunities that come when the technology becomes available to you, is the drones that the Lifeguards use are able to immediately identify sharks that are in the water, for example, and even to the type of shark, whether it's a dangerous shark or not, and they're able to do preventative alerts, preventative actions to get people out of harm's way. It's really kind of a game changer on that. The use of drones in the fire service, we're able to use, our drone has infrared heat, and heat is able to see different heat differences in a structure fire. So we put out a fire. One of our biggest tasks after we put out a fire is the overhaul process. And that's where we look for hidden fire that is behind a wall or still smoldering so that we don't have a rekindle later on. Well, our drone operator is able to get the drone up in the air and look for hot spots using the drone. From a top-down level, we're at ground level, so sometimes we don't see, and we can't, of course, see heat with our eyes, but the drone can. We are much more efficient now at picking out hot spots and preventing rekindles.
Okay, so with regard to the Lifeguards using drones, on a typical summer day, will there always be a drone patrolling the beach areas with somebody watching a screen somewhere? It
doesn't necessarily patrol on a regular basis. It's used on an as-needed basis, generally. It can be used to look for a missing child, for example, if someone has wandered off.
So it's an on-call basis?
It's more of an on-call thing,
Okay. Yeah. And I assume then same thing for fire suppression?
Yes. The drone program is part of our fire investigator group, fire investigation program at this time. And so when a fire investigator gets called out, quite often the drone will come with a little later in the game to help do the overhaul process and take overhead shots for a fire investigation that can be very illustrative and illuminating to fire investigation. Now, with a more serious incident, a wildland fire that is threatening homes, the drone operator has the ability to respond and has responded more quickly to get out there earlier. We do give the drone operator and the battalion chiefs who are in charge of the fires to special call them immediately if needed. So again, it's on call, but they will respond quickly as needed.
Does the fire investigation sit inside of, I assume, the deputy chief of operations? Where does that sit?
Actually, it fits under the community risk reduction division.
Oh, okay.
We spoke about how the fire marshal does code enforcement, and both in the construction process and also in ongoing fire inspections under types of occupancies that are required that we do that with. Apartment buildings is a great example. But there's so much more under the community risk reduction division's programs that they manage, including and what the fire marshal manages. There is our public education program, preventing injury and illness going forward. Again, that's part of community risk. We have the fire investigation program. That authority lives in the fire code, the requirement to investigate all fires. So we have fire inspectors who are also fire investigators, and they write reports that are legally binding, and we go to court and we testify to those. And we have a very strong fire investigation program, something I'm really proud of the people that are doing that work. So yeah, speaking about community risk, it's a very wide-ranging topic, not just fire marshal work traditionally.
Where else has technology changed over several decades?
Well, you know, let me speak about where we're going with technology right now, because I think that that's going to be one of, that speaks to a lot of what we're doing and where we're going. We need to be efficient and effective with taxpayer dollars. You know, the pressure on government to do more with less is always there. We're looking at becoming data-driven, looking at becoming as responsive as quickly as possible to the needs of the community, because I think, as everybody could probably agree, the world is changing very rapidly. It's under a lot of pressure, whether it's international pressure or local pressure, all affecting us. The price of fuel is through the roof for everybody. Well, we have a large cost for fuel on our fire engines. And when we look at using data to make decisions, reducing the amount of wear and tear on a vehicle is going to be more efficient to taxpayer dollars. Reducing the number of miles they're driving will cost less in fuel. But most importantly, now we're able to keep our units available to provide service for the community. Paramedics can respond to paramedic level calls. More firefighters available to respond to fire calls. They're not potentially on an ambulance at the hospital and unavailable to do fire responses. So data is really coming to the forefront, and that is technology driven. We have to have people that are very strong in GIS work, in database manipulation, and looking for where the numbers are pointing us so that we can use taxpayer dollars efficiently, but also to provide service through our most important resource, our people, efficiently and safely.
Yeah. We are basically out of time. Any last thoughts on the future of the Oceanside Fire Department?
You know, my last thoughts are, I'll give a couple real quick, is that I'm very humbled to have been chosen for this position. You know, as a young man growing up, you know, I just looked for, you want to do something good in your life and your career. And I'm fortunate that I've done some powerful things. I can honestly say I've saved a life with my own hands, defibrillating in an ambulance. I can say I've responded to fires. And now I'm on the other side of that equation. I'm able to give of myself to the most important resource, as I said, in the fire department, and that's the people. And my goal is going to be to humbly serve them, make them successful, hopefully make them better people, treat them right. And in the end, I want to, as I said, serve them. I want to transform them so that they are fulfilled. What that becomes then is a high-performing organization for the community. And we make our community better through our actions, through our deeds, and hopefully we're all in this positive feedback loop of taking care of each other, because the world can be a difficult place sometimes, and we've all experienced that, whether it's through a fire or other emergency. And I feel very fortunate to be the bottom of that pyramid, supporting those others above me.
Well, thank you very much, Chief Parsons, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
KOCT, the voice of North County.